you, what would your biggest question be to him?
Yeah, Bill, great to be on. And I did used to serve on the Oversight Committee. I'm on Judiciary now and other committees. But Jamie Comer's doing a great job. Of course, he should call Dr. Conner in before the committee to get to the heart of what the mental state of the president was. Because this isn't an issue about the use of an auto pen. Of course, presidents use auto pen. It's an issue of who is deciding. Who was making the decisions? That's what I want to know from the doctor. What was the mental capacity of the president? Look, we obviously know in the Her report, who he said, this guy is not all there, right? And that he's an aging man who, you wouldn't put on the stand. That was a big clue. It was one of the reasons I went to the floor last year in the House and I said that the vice president should be asked to invoke the 25th Amendment. And of course, Democrats ran away from it. And you had the White House press secretary who now is all of a sudden finding religion and becoming an independent, writing a book, who was out there saying, I can't keep up with the president. Half my colleagues were all saying, oh, he's sharp, he's great. But the president of the United States was not all there, and everybody in America knows it. So who was making the decisions? Who was deciding where our military should be? Who was making decisions about national security, about pardons? Who was signing these things? Because I think there was a cadre of radical leftists around the president in the White House making decisions, and the President Trump, is exactly right. It is one of the biggest scandals in American history.
Politico out now with a headline which essentially says whatever is uncovered in this probe could potentially be pretty damaging to the Democrats and to the media as a whole. I'll read a little headline from it. It says, quote, the investigation also potentially implicates the broader Democratic Party apparatus and partisan media outlets that supported Biden throughout 2024. It's not so much a legal problem as it is a potential political or professional one for those involved, particularly as the party struggles to find its way out of the political wilderness and operatives within the party jockey for position headed into 2028. So, Congressman, it sounds like some Democrats out there are worried that if you guys start pulling on this string a little bit, the whole ball is going to come around.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's pretty clear that pretty much the entire Democratic establishment in town was in on it. And it wasn't until they saw midsummer after that debate that, oh my gosh, we might actually lose the election, because people now see in front, center, the mental state of the president, that they needed to pull the pin and move it in the correction. That's really what's been guiding the Democrat Party for the last 5, 6, 8 years, right? Trump derangement syndrome. That has been driving the entire agenda of the Democrat Party. They were then ignoring all of the important duties of the commander-in-chief and the person that is supposed to run our government, and allowing, again, a radical cadre leftist in the White House to make decisions on behalf of the president. It is abundantly clear that's what was occurring. And now you've got reporters who suddenly they come to see the light, and they are now writing books, so they're now coming forward and saying, oh yeah, I mean, maybe there was something going on there. Well, thanks, Woodward and Bernstein, for doing your job now. But, we were all watching this unfold in real time, and frankly, it's embarrassing, and it is a huge scandal.
I want to turn to a topic I know you care a lot about, immigration enforcement. This is a wild story here. There's nearly a dozen ICE agents who are currently sick and stranded in a metal shipping container in the East African country of Djibouti. The officers are being forced to watch these 8 criminal illegal aliens you see on the screen right here. This is after a federal judge ordered they not be deported to South Sudan. Now, these aliens have all been convicted of really heinous crimes, including murder and child sexual assault. The U.S. military base where these ICE agents are stuck in, really dangerous. On top of temperatures being over 100 degrees, the officers, the detainees are sick. They're at risk of getting malaria. On top of that, they're facing possible rocket attacks from Houthi terrorists in nearby Yemen. Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin posting this, quote, the Massachusetts district judge is putting the lives of our law enforcement in danger, stranding them in Djibouti without proper resources, lack of medical care, and terrorists who hate Americans running rampant. This is reprehensible and, quite frankly, pathological. Congressman, one of the guys that they're watching over there is a Cuban national convicted of murder who's had a deportation order since 1999. All the guys have deportation orders. They have their due process. Now the judge is saying, you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, you remember President Jackson who said, well, the courts, you've issued your opinion, now go enforce it. I think we ought to be sending this federal judge from Massachusetts straight over to Djibouti and say, look, you deal with these violent criminals. You deal with heat. You deal with the missiles that are flying in and dealing with what's going on with the Houthis. We are putting our ICE agents in danger to go deal with these violent criminals who the previous administration doesn't really care to make sure that we're keeping out of the streets and keeping out of our country. And now you've got a liberal judge, a radical judge, who's endangering them by trying to insert himself into the middle of what is clearly an executive function. To say we've got these dangerous people and they need to be sent home. And that, or sent wherever, sent out of our country. And so I want these judges to have to step up. They issue their orders, they sit behind their desk with a pen. Like, make this judge have to go over to Djibouti and go check out what he's forcing these ICE agents to do so that he can go feel good about himself at cocktail parties and frickin' Boston.
With the ICE agents here in the U.S., they're really starting to crank up their arrest numbers. They actually broke their single-day arrest records for illegal aliens on back-to-back days this week. That would be Wednesday and Tuesday. More than 2,000 arrests on each day. This all coming after the White House pushed the agency to pick up the pace. They want 3,000 a day. And there's been all sorts of criticism for Sanctuary City Boston's mayor over her comments this week. Here's the acting ICE director responding to her. Take a listen.
It's outright disgusting. What Mayor Wu said is completely disgusting. She actually compared us to a neo-Nazi group. But while they may not like it, what the men and women of ICE are doing in Massachusetts and all over the country is making communities safer.
And in case anybody missed it, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu essentially equated ICE to the Nazis. The mayor had the opportunity to walk back her remarks. She didn't.
I don't know of any police department that routinely wears masks. We know that there are other groups that routinely wear masks. NSC 131 routinely wears masks. What I said is that Boston Police and no police department that I know of at the local level routinely wears masks.
So many on the left and Democrats hitting ICE agents for concealing their identities. They're getting death threats. They're being doxxed. Here's the House Minority Leader.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is America. It's not the Soviet Union. And every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
And House Speaker Mike Johnson just this morning pretty fired up about all this.
From the people who mandated mask wearing for years in America is absurd. They need to back off of ICE and respect our agents and stop protesting against them.
So you're okay with these agents sort of not identifying themselves when they're arresting migrants?
Why? So that they can target them, so they can put their names and faces online and dox them? That's what these activists do.
Congressman, I know that was a big lead up to you there. I want to get your thoughts on this. I've been with ICE a bunch of times. They're going out and arresting murderers, child rapists, fentanyl traffickers, and the things they're getting is to be called Nazis and say they're all going to be doxxed. Your reaction?
This is the Democrat Party that wants to say they back the blue. This is their examples of how they back the blue and back our law enforcement community. You know, Mayor Wu and Speaker, or I should say the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, you know, they were the chief proponents of everybody in America having to wear masks. Every child in America having to sit out in the cold near school wearing masks with pseudoscience that had no basis in reality. And now they want to say to ICE agents, oh guys, you can't, hide your identity so that you're not being targeted by cartel members and gang members and violent criminals that Biden and all their Democratic cronies led to the United States. Again, like that federal judge, I'd like to see Mayor Wu, or I'd like to see Leader Jeffries. Why don't you go out? Why don't you go out and find these dangerous individuals? Why don't you do it without masks? And then you see what happens when they're targeting you and your families. When I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I had to work with the FBI, I had to work with CBP and ICE, I had to work with our law enforcement community to try to stop the dangerous people who are coming into the United States. And that was 15 years ago, before the radical policies of Joe Biden and these radical Democrats who've endangered Americans by putting these people on our streets. I think we should stand with ICE. They're doing what they should do to protect their folks. And by the way, they're doing that while they're getting put in danger by this federal judge in Massachusetts saying you got to go sit in Djibouti getting missiles fired at you so that guy can feel good about himself.
Yeah, it's interesting. We always hear these politicians say nobody's above the rule of law, but that thinking apparently doesn't apply to immigration law. Congressman Chip Roy, thank you for your time. Always great to see you, my friend.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
The Police Commissioner of Boston
You said you doubled down on not helping law enforcement officers of ICE. I'm coming to Boston. I'm bringing hell with me.
This is a promise made, promise kept. A month after that promise, the Borders Our Time Woman announced a multi-agency operation in Boston that arrested nearly 400 illegal immigrants, a majority of them criminal migrants. This, as a local news investigation, revealed that multiple illegals were rounded up by ICE, were charged with, and you just look at it, you got 3 counts of child rape, you got aggravated child rape of a victim under the age of 9. Then you look right here, assault to rape, and a mass armed robbery. This person was released on 0 bail. Then you got 2 illegal aliens charged with child rape. They released $500 each. And then finally, 2 illegal aliens charged with cocaine and fentanyl trafficking released on $500 and $4,000 when it comes to the bill. Let's bring in the big man himself, Borders Czar Tom Homan. Tom, tell me exactly what's happening on the ground. How are we able to accomplish this?
So look, we're keeping President Trump's promise. President Trump has promised we're going to secure the border, which we've done for the longest time, to close the border. So we're at 96% of the time on the border. And he promised we're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats to illegal aliens in the country. And that's what we're doing.
Sir
Boston, I sent a seat back to the sanctuary state. And we're going to come and despite their sanctuary status, we're going to bring agents there. We're going to take these worst of the worst off the street.
So Tom, just to get into some of the specifics here, so you got these folks that had already been charged with this. What your agents were asking, keep these guys behind bars, and we'll go pick them up. But many of these criminals got charged, and they were released back on the street, right?
You're absolutely right. In one case, I looked at, one case, it was a child rape. He was released 2 years ago without honorary detainer. It took us 2 years to find this person. So how many children did he attack in the last 2 years? All we're asking for is let our agents into the jail where you lock somebody up. And let us arrest them there when you're done with them, rather than release them back in the public and make them a public safety issue.
Tom, now that you have these guys in custody, where are they going?
They're going to be deported. They're in detention now, and we'll deport each and every one of them. We're going to stand by the President's promise to decrease illegal alien crime in this country. We're not going to rest until every illegal alien public safety threat, every illegal alien national security threat is eradicated from this country. That is what we're doing, and we're going to get it done.
This is what the governor of Massachusetts had said. Governor Healey said this. Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state, and Massachusetts law enforcement regularly partner with the federal agencies, the federal law enforcement, to keep people safe. We are ranked as one of the safest states in the country. So, Tom, is it a sanctuary state or not?
Yeah, it is, and we just proved them wrong. The mayor of Boston said I was lying, and the girl said I was lying about the city. But we went to that city, we went to the surrounding counties around that city, and you look what we did in 5 days. We got a lot of work to do. We're not done. We're going back. And I said, we're going to keep going back until every illegal alien public safety threats we remove, not from Massachusetts, but in the country. We'll make this country safe. President Trump made a promise, and we're going to keep President Trump's promise.
Tom, there's been some pushback about the flights going overseas. Will the flights continue? Will these people go back?
So the Aliens Act, we'll run that plan in court. I'm not an attorney with DOJ taking that out of court. But in the meantime, I said, we're not going to stop arresting Venezuelan TDA members in this country. And if we can't keep tied away, then we'll detain until it takes over. But we're going to arrest them, we're going to take them off the streets. We're going to keep our promise. TDA has been verified as terrorist organizations. Them and MS-13. They're designated terrorist organizations. Those 2 flights carry terrorists out of this country. We're not going to apologize for it. We think we did the right thing. We followed the Aliens Enemies Act. But the President simply invoked the authorities he has in a statute of federal law, and that's what we did. This administration is following the law. We're using the law to make this country safer, unlike the last administration, who not only ignored the law warrants, they violated law with misuse of parole. We're making this country safe again, one illegal alien at a time. We're going to keep going.
Tom, I know you've been doing this job for 30 years, amongst Democrats and Republican presidents. There was a judge that talked about the treaty, and it said something that I think you're going to take great umbrage with. This is what the judge said.
The point here was that there were plane loads of people, and it was also a class action. There were plane loads of people There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Army Act than has happened here.
Is that true, Tom?
No, we followed every procedure within the Alien Act. Maybe you need to read that act. We did the right thing. I'm not aware of every single case, but I've been told by highest levels in ICE that every one of those Venezuelans on that plane was TDA based on hours of investigation, anywhere from criminal investigations to wiretaps to witnesses statement. They put a lot of effort in this, and I can guarantee that every one of the guns going from many TDA. And again, we're a designated terrorist organization. And I'm sick of these radical judges. Why don't they talk to Laker Riley's family? What due process does she have? Talk to the other young women that were raped and murdered in this country by TDA members. Talk to the family young lady that was burned alive on the subway. We did the right thing. We're keeping President Trump's promise. We're going to arrest every one of these people. And again, we're not going to arrest every one of them out of this country. This is what the President Trump promised American people. We're going to do this every day, 24/7 across this country without apology. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Tom, I only got a few seconds left, but before I go, I just want you to make it clear to our audience why you guys don't release all the information that you got through intelligence. You put the law enforcement as well as the sources at risk when you release that, right?
You're exactly right. We got to protect the confidential sources. We also have to protect our law enforcement methods. We can't tell everybody how we do this because it's law enforcement sensitive information. We need the element of surprise. We need to find the most dangerous people in the world that are walking the streets of the United States. There are a lot of law enforcement sensitive methods we use. We got to protect our sources. We got to protect the confidential informants that are giving up statements to us. So this is what we do. We do it well, and we won't keep doing it.
Yeah, it's an entire criminal enterprise that's paying for these guys to get out. When we start talking, then the criminal knows what you're going to do, and people die as a result of that. You guys are doing a great job. Tom, thanks so much for joining the program. All right, now this. The Trump administration is invoking the state secret privilege as it refuses to give the judge more information on the migrant deportation flights to El Salvador. Group changes is live in Washington report.
Good morning, guys. Late yesterday, here's what happened. Attorney General Tim Bondi signed a document formally announcing the administration is invoking the state secret's privilege to prevent the government from having to disclose national security information in open court after declarations from Secretary of State Rubio and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem were made to Bondi, but District Judge James Boasberg wants answers about these flights to El Salvador after rejecting a request to lift the temporary block on those deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. Wrote this: because the named plaintiffs dispute that they are members of Trinidad Aragua, they may not be deported until a court has been able to decide the merits of their challenge. Now, at issue is whether Judge Boasberg overstepped his authority when ordering the government to return more than 250 suspected TDA gang members back to the U.S., even as military planes carrying those migrants were already outside U.S. airspace. So now the three-judge D.C. appeals court panel will make that determination. They appeared split on whether the flights should continue, with Obama-appointed Judge Patricia Millett blasting the use of the wartime authority.
The point here is that there were plane loads of people. It was all this class action. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Army Act than has happened here.
But Judge Justin Walker is probably seeing more empathetic to the DOJ's arguments in his questions, while that third judge, appointed by President George H.W. Bush, Karen Henderson, asked no questions. We really aren't sure, guys, where she'll come down. They can rule any time, and they could rule narrowly or more broadly. You just have to wait and find out. And don't forget, the losing side could also try and fast-track this to the Supreme Court. Guys?
Right.
It certainly will.
Yeah, it's almost a given. What I was losing slow. You know, is it correct? Is it true that they already picked the Supreme Court justice over the hearing? And it's Elena Kagan?
We do not know that. There's some speculation. And look, we also don't know, Brian, really whether we get a one-sentence order today or whether or not we will get, in coming days, a much broader ruling that will instruct perhaps future judges hearing cases like this in these circumstances. So a lot of unknowns right now.
Could be brought to be an arrow brick, thank you. You know, I must say, Judge Mallet, I don't think we've expressed an appropriate level of rage for what she said. Yes, you are entitled to a hearing unless they land in the exact where it's special wartime. How does that mean the alien does not get a hearing? But Nazis got better treatment, okay? Homan said Lincoln Riley didn't get due process. Rachel Warren, a mother of 4, did not get a modicum of due process when she was slaughtered out for a run. Nor did Nagari, that little girl who went to a convenience store. So when the judge talks about Nazis and TDA, I can tell you the average American hears the young girls and mothers who have lost their lives who didn't get any due process.
And to that point, Kaylee, they're still in the country right now. I take you to this operation that Tom Homan just did in Boston. Look at the world right here. You got 3 counts of aggravated rape against a child right here, a victim under 9, assault rape, a mass armed robbery, child rape again. By the way, released on bail $500. Then you got cocaine and fentanyl trafficking across the country. This is just one city in the country that has a mayor that wants to defend them. The governor claims that it's not a sanctuary city. A sanctuary state. But obviously, these people found the sanctuary there.
That's right. And one of the things that the administration's done is they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we get the people out of the country as quickly as possible? And we had heard that from Tom Homan from the get-go, even before he assumed the position. And so they're using this Enemies and Aliens Act from the 1700s to try to do it. They knew, from my sources in the administration, they knew it was going to get adjudicated. It was going to go through the courts. They just want finality. They want the American judicial system to say, okay, you can do it this way, or you can do it that way. And then they're going to do it that way, whatever it is, in a big way.
So yesterday, over the weekend, they just wanted to stress how Donald Trump is threatening to ignore the courts, which he has never done. Every single Sunday show focused on that, except for Shannon's. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's borders are Tom Homan in action big time in Boston. He announced the arrest of 370 in the surrounding areas. He said actually he traveled to Boston on Tuesday, as promised, kicking off a 5-day operation. It was pointed out by the governor. Pleased to work with ICE. We're not a sanctuary state. We have sanctuary cities in our state. Here's Tom Homan.
One case, there was a child rape. He was released 2 years ago without honorary detainer. It took us 2 years to find this person. So how many children did he attack in the last 2 years? All we're asking for is let our agents in the jail when you lock somebody up. And let us arrest them there with the government rather than release them back in the public and make the public safety issue. Mayor Wu in Boston said out loud and a girl felt lying about the city. Well, we went to that city. We went to the Shawnee counties around that city. And you look what we did in 5 days. We got a lot of work to do. We're not done. We're going back. And I said, we're going to keep going back to every public safety that we remove, not from Massachusetts, but of the country. We'll make this country safe. President Trump made it private, and we're going to keep President Trump private.
You know, one of the things that ICE and Tom Homan are doing is the fact that when they sweep up 370 criminals, alien criminals, and the people in Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts say, why exactly doesn't our state or why doesn't our city cooperate with ICE to get these people off the streets? Why don't they do that? The people, they don't have an answer.
Yeah, Tom Homan, if you look at the data Bill Nugent put out, I just did some rough calculator math with the 33,000 that they've apprehended illegal immigrants, and you look at those who have pending criminal charges or convicted of crimes, 73.4% of people Tom Homan has wrapped around the country have pending criminal charges or criminal convictions. That is pretty good.
If you notice now the administration of that bus, you can see the names of them. It's because there's so much coordination involved. You release the names, you get all the information out there, the criminals are onto. So now the administration, they tried to be transparent, but police were happening all over the place, and they're coordinating with the criminals. So now they're holding it, and today wrap up everybody, and then maybe we'll start doing something. I just want our community to be safe.
Just said President Trump, the Massachusetts State Police were brought to the White House, recognized by Trump and Attorney General Bondi for their partnership. So Governor Maura Healey tried to lab away to say, don't think we're all like Boston, which is interesting because she's a Democrat. I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
So today on Capitol Hill, House lawmakers are set to examine threats to ICE operations. It comes as a Democratic congresswoman faces federal charges. She's accused of assaulting a police officer during the storming of that New Jersey ICE facility earlier this month. Borzar Tom Holman joins us right now. So Tom, I said initially this was the right call. I'm glad they conducted the investigation. They didn't overcharge, but they didn't undercharge as well. What's your reaction?
Well, I said from day one, you cross that line, you don't ask the prosecution. You cannot support this. Shame on you, you can put it back in whatever, you can protest. But you cannot cross that line. You can't knowingly impede a law enforcement police officer. It's a crime. You can't knowingly conceal other than your language. You cannot, commit criminal trespass at facilities and endanger our employees. And you certainly can't put hands on ICE agents. So, she's going to have to pay the consequences for doing what she did. She broke the law and we're all accountable.
Tom, doesn't it send a message, though, to all sort of activists as well? If she wanted to conduct oversight, she could have scheduled an appointment, arrived there, and they would have gladly showed her the facility, just like they did for our own Rachel Campbell's deputy. But she showed up with a mob, and they assaulted cops.
Exactly. This is politics. This is politics over positivity, politics over common sense. I mean, that facility is one of the finest facilities in the nation. I should give a review to any congressperson or any news station that's going to look at the facility. Come on and look. We have the highest detention standards in the industry. That facility puts to shame any other facility in the state of New Jersey, any state or local facility. This facility puts it in shame because the detention standards are so high. Anybody looks at any of the facilities and say, well, that was a waste of time. These detention facilities are actually really well built, really well maintained. Detention standards high in the industry. So come on and look at it. You can't break into the facility. You can't force your way into the facility. And again, you can't put hands on an ICE employee. You're not going to allow it.
Tom, let's talk about these self-deportation flights. I think the first one arrived yesterday. You guys are going to pay folks $1,000 if they choose to self-deport. I was actually skeptical if this was going to work, but it looks like folks are already taking these flights. How did you convince them to self-deport?
Because if they don't, they won't face serious consequences. What we started doing is we're enforcing two laws that we haven't enforced in a long time. Number one, felons registered. If you don't feel registered after 90 days of being here, we're going to prosecute you criminally. Then we're going to report you. And if you hinder your arrest, if you don't open the door, if you don't answer our questions, if you don't assist in travel documents for immigration after being ordered deported by the immigration judge, we will prosecute you for that with the ABC 1253. So we'll prosecute you and put you in prison. When you get out, we'll deport you. We're not playing games. There are going to be consequences. Leave on your own. If you leave on your own and work with us, you get your affairs in order. It makes sense for them and their families. And give yourself an opportunity to come back to this country as a visitor or as a student, or if you have a U.S. citizen child, he can petition for you as a parent of a U.S. citizen. There are other avenues to come to this country the right way. But if we have to formally deport you, we got to go find you, and we got to put you on a plane and formally deport you, there are consequences. There are bars from 5 years to 20 years. You can't come back. Some of the bars are forever. So leave on your own and give yourself some opportunity in the future to be part of the greatest country on earth.
Tom, I only got about 30 seconds. I just got to get your reaction to the former VP candidate, Tim Walz, going after ICE, saying all of these words, accusing them essentially of being Nazis as well. What's your reaction? You used to run ICE.
Just disgusting. Every man, woman, and ICE straps a gun to their hip every day and wear a Kevlar vest to arrest the worst of the worst. Look at the numbers. ICE is almost arrested